शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल गायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधात जय 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 Yeah. So I request members who are sitting and behind come forward, please. So chairs are vacant on in front rows also, so it will be better. So members coming late, they may sit on behind this behind chairs. So please come forward. Don't worry, we will allow to give you also. So feel free. We will give you complete audience that you are getting by sitting last years. So I was also that ventures. So today's speaker, we try to pronounce best in the industry. So today's speaker, Milan Mody, I am thanking him for accepting our request on presentation. For last 2 days. So thank you. And before starting, I request Milan Janji to promotion of our speaker. Appreciation. And
good morning. First of all, I congratulate our new convener, Mr. Pansal, and Deputy Convener, Mody Madam. And I wish their tenure will give one more feather in the cap of the JB Nagar Study Circle. I also thank Mr. Lalit Bansal to give me this opportunity to introduce today's speaker in his first meeting. Today's speaker, Mr. Milan Mody, he has experience of over 28 years and he's a partner in Shah & Company and Shah Associates LLP. He has made presentation at various forums like BCS, ICAI, WIRC, Chamber of Tax Consultants, various study circles in Mumbai and Bangalore. He has made presentation on auditing and assurance standard, accounting standard, Companies Act, Schedule 3 and CARO, corporate social responsibility, due diligence, internal audit, aggregation of CFMs and networking. Is a technical review of annual report of ICI award on excellence in financial reporting for 5 consecutive years from 2015-16 to 2021. He is a panelist for WOFA 2026 on topic accounting implication of new labor code. He is authored various articles published in newspaper, online portals and professional journals published by BCA, CTC and ICAI on technical topics related to audit. He held committee member position in BCA, WIRC, CTC, invited to Direct Tax Consultant Committee, Direct Tax Committee of ICAI for the year 26-27. He has contributed to WRC reference manual for last 5 years. He is part of group which assisted the peer review board of incorporate section on AQMM in the peer review manual. He has co-authored publication by Taxman and CTC on CARO 2020 published in August 21. He will be speaking on precaution in audit of the listed company. Before I present him before you, I request our senior member Sri Kailash Jain to present a memento on behalf of JV Nagar Study Circle.
Good morning. Don't worry, Milan. Better I would like to do things are basic. It applies to all companies. Yeah, I take the point. It applies to all, whether it is a listed, unlisted, whether it is a private, whether it is a public, whether it is a partnership, whether it is an agency. So certain principles of audit. Thank you. Yeah, am I audible? Yeah. Okay. So, as I said, audit is an audit, and I'm presuming some of the basic steps we all are aware of when it comes to audit. So, the topic given to me is the precaution to be taken in an audit of a listed company, which means there is an audit and there is an audit of a listed company. The basics of audit also apply to the basics of listed company audit, and then there are few more things over and above basic audit, which applies predominantly only to a listed entity. So we are trying to cover that. Obviously, I've covered some of the basics of audit also, but the objective here is to look at what are the unique, specific things which apply to an audit of a listed company as compared to a non-listed company. Let's put it that way. Can I have a slide changer? So obviously, listed is your main board. You have an SME board. You have equity shares which are listed, and you have debt which is listed. And there are separate regulations for all three categories, which is equity shares listed, the SME board, and the debt listed. So the regulations under the AOTR, which is the SEBI, are different for each of them. And we will try to cover some portion of that differences also. नहीं करो how many of you are involved in a listed company only? Very few. Okay. Don't worry. Some of the principles which are applied for listed, if you apply for non-listed, that's not a problem. In fact, then your quality of audit would be that much more superior, and you will be able to withstand any questions, query, either from regulator or any other body in respect of the audit which you have conducted. So even if they do not apply to the clients which you are, try to see how some of those principles can still be embedded within the audit which you do. And by that, ensure that the value add of the audit services is that much greater. Because at the end of the day, besides only pure compliance, which is obviously a significant portion, there is also a need to add value to the clients when we are doing our audits. So we cover a little bit about this topic itself, the backdrop, learning from observations made by the regulators. The regulator predominantly is NAFRA for listed companies. It is the QRP for unlisted companies. And there is a financial reporting review board, which is general in nature. So we will try to cover the observations which they have made in respect of the audits which they have reviewed or the auditors which they have reviewed, and see whether those learnings are helpful in terms of us avoiding some of the mistakes which other auditors have done. When it comes to listed, the consolidation is the key. So 50 years back, maybe there was no concept of consolidated financial statements. But now what is most important is the consolidated financial statement. And when it happens to consolidated financial statements, what is the point? There is an auditor who is the auditor of the holding company, and there are multiple auditors of the subsidiary. And there is a lot of guidelines which have now been published or guidelines which have been issued in respect of the group auditor, which is the holding company auditor versus the component auditor. So we'll try to touch upon that. That's a topic where a lot of controversy also got generated between NAFRA and Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. We will see that later on. One of the most hottest topic at this point of time is those charged with governance. And again, NAFRA came in picture, and when they did the review of 6 top firms, which is Big Four plus the other 2, it observed that the auditor is not identifying those charged with governance correctly. And again, it's a topic by itself, but it's the most hot topic. I think 7th January is when the circular came, and post that, lot of board of directors have started working along with the auditors on defining, identifying those charged with governance and other requirements of that circular. And then I said we will touch a little bit about the basics, which is your standard auditing procedure, and the final conclusion in terms of key takeaways and recommendations from my side. Are you okay till now in terms of the once public money comes into any company? Okay, and this is what I heard. 44% of all listed company, the ownership is with the promoters. 56% is outside the promoters, which obviously includes a lot of other categories. It could be DII, it could be FII, it could be mutual fund, it could be retail shareholders. But 56% of the market is held by non-promoters. And because 56% is owned by non-promoters, there is a responsibility which is casted on us as auditors to ensure that our reporting is fair, equitable. And by that reporting, a trust is generated in terms of the financial statement. That's the most important thing. That how do we build the confidence and the trust of various investors on the financial statements? That once we say this is true and fair, it will not change. Obviously, the expectations are high, but there is no point in debating whether these expectations are realistic or unrealistic. They are as it is. The government, the regulators, the society all expects the auditor to perform diligently. Expectations are high. Sometimes expectations are unreasonable. But let's not go into that deliberation at this point of time. Let's look at what is the requirement and see that we comply with those requirements. Obviously, because of public investment, it will have more scrutiny. Timeliness is another essence of a listed company. And my experience of the 30 years shows me that timeliness is actually a very good rule. There are timelines which are set 45 days, 60 days, post a quarter. And that timeliness is something which helps a company, in my view, in terms of if the audit is proper, if the accounts are properly prepared, you get your results at a lesser frequency, more accurate, and you are able to take decision making much better. I've seen a company which started a monthly audit, not limited review, not MIS, but a proper monthly audit. And the board used to meet every month to look at those results. So, sometimes some of these things do benefit the company in terms of taking various decisions. And one of the most important things in audit is that you have to be independent so that you can be dispassionate or you can be unbiased in the opinion which you are providing, and you should have professional skepticism. I think we all have that professional skepticism. We are trained in that manner. But a lot of focus by NAFRA is also on the professional skepticism. We'll see some of those. All listed companies have Ind AS, so obviously accounting standard, which is the IFRS based Ind AS, is something which is very standard of auditing. And Code of Ethics has gone a lot of changes over the years. Companies Act, and then there will be specific laws pertaining to that company. So if it's an electricity company, then there will be an electricity act which will apply. If it's a bank which is listed, then there will be a banking act beside the other regulations which apply. And NBFC, there are separate guidelines by RBI. So these are the 4-5 pillars based on which your audit has to be based. Yeah. So if it's an unlisted company versus a listed company, what is the difference? Ind AS gets replaced by GAAP. Standard on auditing still apply to an unlisted company, also Code of Ethics also apply to an unlisted company. But maybe the severity which you apply is different. Companies Act applies, except if it's a private company, there are certain sections which are exempt. You have the exemption of certain sections which are applicable to a private company does not apply. Small companies has been defined and some relaxation has been given to small companies which do not apply for a listed entity. SEBI LODR is completely different for a listed company. So that's an additional compliance which you have to ensure. Specific laws more or less may apply to an unlisted company also. But again, it's a case to case. In case I'll come to that. SME listing in the what is the other difference between an audit of a listed company and an unlisted company? Your firm or you have to be peer reviewed. Yeah, so that's something which is very essential. What does a peer reviewer do? Peer reviewer comes to the auditor's firm and sees whether all the elements of audit by the firm is complied with all institute has the 3-year cycle, and now more or less all firms have to undergo peer review. There are categories: level 1, level 2, level 3. It's called EUC, practice unit. But in essence, if you are doing any attest function, sooner or later, maybe over a period of 5 years, peer review becomes mandatory for you. I think over the years, a lot of literature is there on peer review. Peer review basically means your hygiene in terms of your files is there. Your engagement letter, your letter of representation, your audit documents, whether you're using checklist or whether you're not using checklist. Whatever opinion which you have formed, whether it is substantiated and demonstrated by way of a documentation. So that is the peer reviewer will look at. But the difference between a listed company audit is that you cannot become an auditor of a listed company unless you are peer review partner. Rotation is another thing which is applicable besides to NBFC. With an individual proprietor, then within 5 years, with the firm, then 10 years. So the compliance starts from appointment. Yeah, understand. The differential of compliance, your eligibility certificate you cannot issue unless you ensure that you comply with the requirement for qualification as an auditor. Cooling off period, if you have been an auditor, 5 years is a cool off period for which you cannot do any other test function. And after 5 years, you can be reopened.
Whether we can do certification.
No, you cannot. You can't. No, none of the test function. None of the test function. You may be doing some other work. So at times, and this is the practice which is followed, you take up internal.
And you can.
But no, post certain period gap, 1 year gap is what people do, and then they become the. Though internal also requires the UDI. No, but this is a practice in which people are following, because the regulation does not debar it completely. There is no specific. Yeah, but attestation you should not get it. See again, the whole no tax audit also you can. Because tax audit also the appointment is the same regulation as the company tax. If you see income tax act, they divert you back to the company tax. So those things are not done. And again.
Be converted into state company.
Yeah.
Then the auditor can send you the total file, the rest will be spent.
I think the period will start from the date of this.
State company.
Thank you. But I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to recheck that and contact. During the initial transition, they gave 3 year extra. So 2013 or 14 when it came, due to this problem, they gave a 3 year transition period. So I'm not sure whether there is a transition period for some version. The another thing, if you recollect, there was this 1% beverages. Auditor suddenly decided to resign. And then SEBI said, you can't keep the client hanging. You can't keep him lurching by saying that no, now I don't want to do your work. So there are specific guidelines for resignation. Purpose of resignation has to be very clearly mentioned. You cannot say due to preoccupation. This was a standard template which was there that due to preoccupation you are that's not permitted. The other template which people are using now is that you are not able to conclude on the field mutually agreed. Ideally, that's not the best thing.
On medical reason.
Yeah, medical reasons would be very, very strong argument.
But we have to go and
Yeah, in fact, you say that. Yeah. But many say medical, I'm resuming that there is some.
that the medical certificate along with the resignation.
No. I don't know. That's not. Again, resignation cannot happen once you completed the second quarter or third quarter, second quarter. So once you do 2 quarters, you have no choice but to complete that March only.
But in between you feel if you fail.
So that's an exception. That's an exception. But otherwise, the requirement is वो तो किसी का death भी हो गया तो change तो होना ही है. But here they are saying generally you cannot resign after the second quarter and you need 45 days notice period. So basically same thing. कि आपने 2 quarter कर दिया बाद में आप तीसरे quarter में बोलोगे अभी I am not comfortable signing the financials, that's not correct. That all you have to take before the second quarter. Yeah. And there are timelines for resignation. So what I'm again, प्राइवेट कंपनी में कभी भी ऑडिटर चेंज करना है कर दो, कोई भी रिजाइन करना है कर लो, कोई रीजन देने की जरूरत नहीं। I don't think there is a justification. Yeah, you can say, yeah, yes. Because this is heavy, this is more of a listed company related thing, where they want specifically, and why this happen? क्योंकि एक के बाद एक continuous 3-4 resignations आ गए under suspicious conditions. What do you mean by suspicious conditions? It was a disagreement between what management felt should be the revenue or profit versus what the auditor thought. And they said that let's make the auditors fine stronger. If they want to make the auditors fine stronger, they give you a belt so that you can stand straight.
Whether company can remove the statutory auditor by conducting the
Obviously, it can.
they can remove.
Yes. The shareholders are the ultimate. Shareholders can do anything and everything. So if they approve it, we cannot challenge that. Yeah, there are
Precedences.
yeah, there's a big case.
I remember the one I've seen, few companies, they approved as auditors.
Sure. I'll come to some of the cafe, coffee day and Divan housing in the NAFTA section. वापस करना पड़ेगा. No, we have to continue. और वो बीच का पीरियड में अगर आपका अपॉइंटमेंट का एलिजिबिलिटी नहीं दे पाऊंगा. No, you don't have to resign. So practically, if you have taken all the steps to demonstrate that you wanted to do peer review on time, but delay happened because of some unprecedented. And during that window when your peer review certificate is not valid, if you have not accepted or given consent for any other appointment, it should be okay. Continue company. I understood, but every year you have to give eligibility certificate, correct? तो एलिजिबिलिटी देते वक्त आपका पीयर रिव्यू था कि नहीं वो देखिए. एलिजिबिलिटी सर्टिफिकेट दे दिया, उसके 15 दिन के बाद आपका पीयर रिव्यू खत्म हो गया और गैप है 2 पीयर रिव्यू सर्टिफिकेट के बीच में 1 महीने, शायद चल जाए ऐसा मैं बोलता हूँ. अगेन स्ट्रिक्टली स्पीकिंग यू शुड रिजाइन. बट डिले क्यों हुआ? पीयर रिव्यू सर्टिफिकेट ऑब्टेन करने में डिले क्यों हुआ? आपकी गलती थी, कौन की गलती थी कि पीयर रिव्यूअर की गलती? वो भी देखना जरूरी है.
I am a peer review. And whatever assignment of the institute to do the peer review. I have already sent all the information to their address. Nobody responded. Subsequently, I found that firm dissolved. Oh, dissolved. In that case, I wrote to peer review board and produced all the documents. It was taken.
Yeah, so these are institute के पास की जो record है, yes, these are all outliers. But sir, अभी तो peer review board is very active. वो लोग 6 महीने पहले, मतलब मैंने टाइमर सेट किया है, जब भी मेरा peer review सर्टिफिकेट आता है, तो आउटलुक में जाता हूँ, रिमाइंडर सेट करता हूँ, 2.5 years के बाद, और वो 6 जन को जाता है ईमेल रिमाइंडर्स, क्योंकि अदरवाइज भूल जाते हैं. तो 6 जन को वो आएगा, मीटिंग इनवाइट जैसे आता है वैसे पॉपअप आएगा कि अभी आपका 6 महीने में पीयर रिव्यू ड्यू है, और इंस्टीट्यूट सामने से भी एक्शन बहुत ले दे आर एनी. Should we go ahead? We come back to some of the topics. So one topic of gentlemen which I cannot answer was on the private to public. If he is aware, children can also yes can answer that. Not very sure about it. And there was one more point which I was. So financial results, whether quarterly, half yearly, even segment and ratios for debt listed is required. The statement of assets and liability and cash flow is required on a half yearly basis. In case of main board and SME, it is both standalone and the consolidated. In case of debt listed, it is only the standalone which is ready. Yeah, so this is just again a snapshot of what are the compliance requirements. These are the timelines, 45 days from the end of the quarter or the half year. Annual it is 60 days and it requires to be audited. So the first one is the timeline. The second is 3 days is mandatory for all listed companies except SME listed is what you were mentioning. So that's where SME listed is one more requirement is अगर आपके पास 10 subsidiaries है तो subsidiaries का भी limited review होना चाहिए कि नहीं होना चाहिए उस पे भी there has been an answer by SEBI which says that 80% of what is there in the consolidated should have been subjected to listing. Because this was one question which was coming into the mind of various auditors that my subsidiary is in Singapore or it is in US or it is in Dubai. दुबई का ऑडिट की रिक्वायरमेंट ही नहीं है अगर दुबई में ऑडिट की रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है but Dubai consists of 80% of my business when I consolidate then is that required to be subjected to limited review? The answer is yes, yes and yes. Yeah. So you cannot say कि वो country में limited review नहीं applicable है इसलिए when I'm consolidating in India limited review does not become applicable. That's not an answer which is acceptable and valid answer.
It will be applicable for the Europe also. Suppose smaller companies are not subject to audit in Dubai or UK. So what will be stand for the year-end financials? If they are not audited, they are okay.
Yeah.
Not audited, not consolidation.
Less than 20% yes.
Doesn't really be okay.
Many percent. अगर वो भी 80% कैसे कैलकुलेट करने का लॉस होता है तो क्या करने का एक जगह लॉस है दूसरी जगह प्रॉफिट so how do you arrive at all this so these are questions so ideally take enough precautions if you have doubt get it clarified by somebody who is experienced that situation so that you can document it to basis on which you have taken a आप जो 80% लिखा है लेकिन 80% ऑफ प्रॉफिट लेकिन यहाँ पे लॉस है और दुबई में प्रॉफिट है तो कभी कभी आंसर इतना सिंपल नहीं होता है ऐसा पूरा you should get it. It is still a significant portion of this.
Requirement is on the India or
LOD. This is again in India. If your final report is modified, then the company is required to disclose the reason in the statement of impact. पहले वो form A और form B आता था. I think they have discontinued that, but this statement of impact is required. And at least I had heard it with me that SEBI or the stock exchange is writing letters. Please ensure that you account so that the qualification is removed and send us the revised statement. तो आपने qualify किया है subject to provision not made for impairment. Suppose example. So stock exchange would write a letter to the company. क्या आप तो auditor ने qualify किया है उसको accounting कीजिए and send us the revised statement. So because they don't want a qualified. In fact, IFRS and APS, the basic principle is that you cannot issue an audited report, but we are issuing. हमने वो रिलैक्सेशन ले लिया है और पूरी कंट्री ने ले लिया है तो कोई कुछ बोल नहीं रहा. But otherwise, the whole concept of IFRS is it has to be an unqualified opinion by God.
Wait, just a minute, when is there to accepting or just drawing them?
There is no law. By practice, it is getting accepted. And that's why I'm saying for a listed company, you need to be that much more careful if you're inserting a qualification. We'll come to that. NAFRA has made comments that जो qualification होना चाहिए था आपने emphasis और matter में डाला है. जो qualification होना चाहिए था आपने उसको छिपा के key audit matters में डाला है. So there are a lot of comments of NAFRA where it has really pierced the curtain and gone deep into the reality. And it has been very bold and sometimes unreasonable in its comment also. Another aspect of IFRS is that there cannot be something called as prior period. IFRS does not have anything called as prior period. If it is an earlier year period, you go to the earlier year, change it, restate it, and put it in the financial year. There is no concept of prior period in the IFRS or invoice. And if it is more than 2 years old, then you go to the, once there is a prior period, you have to actually give 3 years balance and 3 years PM. And you have to go to the initial year opening reserve if it is prior to that year.
There is a change, that is one of state.
There is no concept of prior period under India, sir. ऑडिटर का कोई रिलेशन नहीं है, कंपनी बना दी अकाउंट, उसको फिर वो साल में जाके चेंज करना। ऑडिटर कोई भी
In that will be unaudited balance sheet.
And if it is prior to third year, then go to the opening balance sheet of the third year. You make it directly to the reserve interest.
So those figures if you are changing from the earlier period, then after doing the audit changes, what will you find by that?
You have to put it as a part of your, if it's too significant, you may put it as other matters in your audit report. Or at least a management note explaining this change and why it happened will be there.
That will the figure will be without audited figure thereafter.
No, when you are certifying this year and it is going to be earlier year, to that extent you are doing the audit. You have the audited number plus that number. Why that number has come? So it becomes audited to that extent. You don't change the title. Sometimes you change the title to say restate. So, restate. The term is restated and not regroup. And that's why I'm saying previous year figures that regroup wherever necessary is a statement which is not permitted again under in there and hence the restate comes.
Actual error must have happened in and also we cannot write.
No, you cannot. There is no classification as prior period, sir.
But some genuine error happened in the previous year, genuine.
So go to that year's balance sheet and change it. And if it is a part of your comparative first 3 years, so there is a complete lot of literature on how to do that also. And then EAS 8. We'll come to that if required again. But there is a lot of guidelines which are prescribed for such errors. Yeah. This was a controversial slide in that sense. One more unique thing about listed company is the quarterly EPS. And during one quarter, if shares are issued, rights or preferential or bonus, what does it entail? That your earnings per share, you have a numerator and you have a denominator. The denominator for a quarter could be different. The denominator for the half year could be different. The denominator for 9 months could be different. And the denominator for the year could be different. And obviously, because of the weighted average concept, it's understood, but sometimes people do make this mistake. एक बार calculate हो गया तो वो same formula continue. So that's something which we wanted to highlight. Another practice is that is the March quarter audited or unaudited? No, it is unaudited. Quarter is unaudited. Quarter is unaudited. When you do March, you are doing the full year. So 12 months is audited. First 9 months was subject to limited review. They were unaudited in that sense. And hence the quarter is the balancing figure between the yearly audit minus the 9 months which is subjected to limited review. And hence it becomes unaudited. Yeah. Again, there are different practices which form the following, but predominantly this is the correct.
Then in fourth quarter, typically company has audited.
Correct. Yeah, but the quarter is not separately audited.
Sure.
You are not doing a quarter audit and then
Like SDFC, chairman, also you making operations on the doctor. That impact as
कर दिया ना उसको इंक्वायरी तो चालू कर दिया they are trying to find out the reason, but that's a slightly different matter where auditor is in that sense not yes. Yeah, so that's a governance concept which SEBI is trying to address differently. And obviously there will be no smoke without fire. There is something which is cooking over there, but we all don't know. जो मीडिया में आप पढ़ते हो वही मैंने मेरे क्लाइंट था और एक स्मार्ट आर्टिकल वो आर्टिकल ने शेयर खरीद लिया वो ऑडिट पे गया था शेयर खरीद लिया पैन नंबर के बेसिस पे नोटिस आया था 100 शेयर खरीदे थे और प्रॉफिट किया 1000 रुपये लेकिन कितनी शर्मजनक बात हो जाएगी ऑडिटर के लिए कि we have to say sorry, we have to condone, we have to give issue warning to that article, we have to change various other things. क्लाइंट को भी सॉरी बोलना, क्वेरी जाता है क्लाइंट को, क्लाइंट से भी ऑडिटर के पास आता है, तो सोचो। और ये एक्चुअली बहुत ही स्मार्ट बंदा था, पता नहीं क्यों ऐसा किया, कि क्या कर, हाउ विल कंट्रोल, हाउ विल कंट्रोल,
But declaration, I think,
yeah, we have taken declaration, sir, we have taken the declaration.
any script line is access through PAN number. And declaration.
दूसरी तो मालूम पड़ा ना, दूसरी तो मालूम पड़ा, so see what does happen is designated person करके मेरा डिमांड तो ब्लॉक हो जाता है, because I am the signing partner or I am the quality review partner, but जो टीम मेंबर्स होता है उनका पैन सबमिट करना पड़ता है, so what I am saying is understand, even a small error can cost you as a firm, so you need to be vigilant. Unpublished price sensitive information is definitely an issue. Heavy is becoming and stock exchanges are becoming extremely stringent in terms of sending notices. And if the inquiry comes, you will have to prove that whom did you discriminate, did you take proper precaution or not, as a CA form, which is what is called a structured digital data.
Wife can take partner's wife or,
सर कैसे आप ही सोचो सर कैसे, वो तो 1 लाख का लिमिट भी है फेस वैल्यू का कुछ शेयर का, वो इशू नहीं है।
No, but they can.
और दूसरा है ना,
Medium plus.
सर ये अनपब्लिश्ड प्राइस सेंसिटिव इंफॉर्मेशन के बेसिस पे वो तो नहीं है। आप पहले से होल्डर थे, आपने ड्यूरिंग दैट नॉन पीरियड आपने लिया, अलग बात है, उसमें लिमिट है 1 लाख रुपया फेस वैल्यू का, बट अगेन don't go into a trap. Please don't go into a trap.
but if you want to become a partner of big firm, they are always push take the
Yes,
before becoming.
absolutely, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. So don't do it. That's what I'm also saying, sir. आपका डीमेट अकाउंट वो लोग एक भी क्लाइंट होगा तो जीरो होना चाहिए, और अच्छा सोचिए एक नया क्लाइंट ऐड आपने वापस सर्कुलेट, हाँ एक नया एम्प्लॉय आया, उसको कैसे आप अपडेट करोगे आपके क्लाइंट बेस पे, वो प्रोसेस बहुत ही फॉर्मल होना चाहिए, इट शुड बी कंप्लीटली प्रोसेस ओरिएंटेड, उसमें डिटेल नहीं चल सकता है, स्पेशली सीनियर लेवल पर्सन। आर्टिकल है तो फिर भी थोड़ा हम लोग बोलते हैं चलो 1-2 दिन आगे पीछे होगा, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, बिकॉज he may not be there on that team, and even if he is there, does he understand really all this thing or not? Over a period of time, yes, he understands.
Not the public, the auditor can encourage, say, people.
Sorry?
Work for the obligation is there. Can I think the market.
Oh, fine. Auditor cannot be a
When you exist in old shares, you can find in there.
up to a certain limit, नहीं, 1 लाख का फेस वैल्यू का कुछ लिमिट है, that is completed only. So ideally, I would advise you not to have it. Yes. You decide whether you want to be a shareholder or auditor. Or don't take care of that or not. Either. Internal auditors, I don't think there is specific guidelines, so the principle should apply same. Code of ethics में तो कहीं ना कहीं तो restriction होगा ही। See, one argument can be there, very strong argument. You are a long-term investor, you are not doing based on price sensitive information, you are holding this shares prior to your appointment,
It is not acceptable.
no, SEBI, so whether it will accept or not is again as the right. But if it's a listed company, try it. It's cool. In fact, they want to do it in such a way, इसको सर्कमवेंट करने के लोगों ने म्यूचुअल फंड का आइडिया यूज किया कि वो कंपनी के शेयर्स वो म्यूचुअल फंड में है, तो they want to, we are not able to do it, they also want to sell. Buying mutual funds where there is more than certain percentage of holding of that company where you are. और कैसे करेंगे पता नहीं है, but they want to do it.
But just one private limited company can, you can also.
उसमें भी क्या रेगुलेटर चेंज हो जाता है, और सेबी का रेगुलेशंस आर मच स्ट्रॉन्गर, मोर स्ट्रिंजेंट, more vigilant. They will not, as of Lalithi mentioned, they will not accept your view that I take a prior to. तो बोलेगा आपने उसको और कितना प्रायर है वो भी देखना पड़ेगा आपको कैसे एक्वायर हुआ है. सर ये इनसाइडर ट्रेडिंग का सेशन हो जाएगा. अगेन आइडियली आप जो declaration लेते हो उसमें वो कि you directly or indirectly will not hold any share. आप declaration ले लो.
Just it is because
Yeah. So don't try to put him in that audit ना. उसको audit team में डाल दो ही मत आ. नहीं seriously बोल. आपको कुछ तो पेपर आपको करना ही पड़ेगा ना. अगर वो कंपनी का शेयर होल्डर में है और सिग्निफिकेंट होल्डिंग है. ये 100 शेयर है 200 शेयर है. You can take a risk. You can say how does 100, 200, 300 shares make a difference. But if he has a significant holding or his family has a, don't put him on that other. मेरे केस में आया था एक वो क्लाइंट ने ही आर्टिकल रिकमेंड किया था उसके रिलेटेड थे तो उसको थोड़ी मैं वो असाइनमेंट में डालूंगा तो उसमें नहीं डालूंगा तो ध्यान रखना ही पड़ेगा. आप ऐसा नहीं बोल सकते मेरे पास वही आर्टिकल थी नहीं वो सब आर्टिकल नहीं है. Vigilance mechanism and whistleblower policy is again mandatory for listed companies. You will have to study the process which is followed, the email IDs, what were the, or take a declaration that no whistleblower complaints was received. In fact, the audit committee is also supposed to record all whistleblower complaints and the final outcome of those whistleblower complaints. So that's an additional step when you're doing an audit of a listed company. So we are talking about precautions to be taken while doing an audit of a listed company. This generally will not apply to a private company unless it's very large and it has voluntarily adopted the vigilant whistleblower policy. Fraud reporting, again, company responsibility as well as auditor's responsibility. If it is more than 1 crore, you have to go to the semi-government and report about the fraud which has been found out. There was a lot of controversy that whether that fraud is identified by the auditor or fraud which the auditor comes to know about it, irrespective after I say you are required to inform to SEBI. Where the institute and the general members' view was only if I identify a fraud which is more than 1 crore, I need to report. After that, nothing. Irrespective who has identified, once you come to know about a fraud which has happened in a company, you are required to report. So there is a specific form which you have to use. Yeah.
Yes, identify the fraud. And it is, this also is, another thing, insurance, post IRA, but it doesn't inform the sentiment, is it informed? The part of listed, so subsidiary listed.
I'm not very sure, but I think in spirit, some reporting will be required. We'll come back to that because that is where the SA 600 revised. SA 600 revised talks about the group auditor, which is the holding company auditor. और उसका एक एसेंस कैसा है आप समझो एबीसी करके फॉर्म है जो मेन ऑडिटर है पीक्यूआर करके है जो सब्सिडरी का ऑडिटर है तो वो क्या बोलता है जो एबीसी का जो ऑडिटर है एंगेजमेंट ऑडिटर द अदर पीक्यूआर इज लाइक योर एंगेजमेंट टीम वो आपकी टीम का आदमी बन जाता है वो सेपरेट इंडिपेंडेंट फॉर्म है but it indirectly becomes a part of your team. And because of this onerous responsibility, the consolidated financial statement may to aayega hi. Correct? So, reporting, but company like reporting would be an entity related, so I don't think it will apply. But SEBI को तो उसको inform करना ही पड़ेगा, because ये material event है, तो material transaction and material event by the holding company has to be reported. तो कहीं ना कहीं तो रिपोर्टिंग आएगा ही नहीं. But your specific case will have to see how to handle that. Yeah, material subsidiary. I'm assuming it's a material subsidiary. वो material subsidiary का बात किया आपने. Yeah, should I go ahead? Uh, There is a section called corporate action in the Bombay Stock Exchange side. So if you are the auditor, on a regular basis, you should also look at the corporate action. If the company has voluntarily not informed you, where capital issuance, bonus shares, dividend, all those things are already included by way of information to the stock exchange. And based on those corporate events, corporate actions or events from the company, you will have to modify your audit procedure to ensure that those aspects are taken care in your audit area or audit plan. So if there is, let's say, a rights issue or QIP issue, how is the funds utilized? Or who was the monitoring agency and whether the monitoring agency has issued a clean report or not. अभी इसमें भी एक प्रॉब्लम होता है मॉनिटरिंग एजेंसी की जब बात करते हैं ये जनरली बैंकर्स होते हैं वो बोलते हैं ऑडिटर सर्टिफिकेट देगा उसके बेसिस पे हम लोग सर्टिफिकेट देंगे और हम लोग बोलते हैं उनके बेसिस पे हम सर्टिफाई करेंगे तो वो एग इन द चिकन का सिचुएशन आ जाता है बोथ वांट टू रिलाई ऑन ईच अदर या so as an auditor you are still put under a corner where you will have to ensure that the utilization is proper. Yeah, are you with me on this part? That both the agencies expect each other to do the groundwork and give a comfort to the other agency. वो तो उसका प्रोस्पेक्टस में लिखा ही होगा ना प्रोस्पेक्टस में लिखा रहता है टाइम
Still company don't do it.
then there's a reporting required and seek extension.
I have seen one company, and it, a day network. 6 years back, it took the, issued the right issue, the pension, and still there is a reporting that the company has issued 6 years back this much amount, and it is still pending the issue.
So there are specific points and there is a corporate general purpose funds which are taken from the market. If these specific things are also pending, I think they have no option but to go to the SEBI and seek extension for timeline for utilization. If it is not done, मैं वही बोल रहा हूँ मॉनिटरिंग एजेंसी को रिपोर्ट करना है इनको मॉनिटरिंग एजेंसी ऑडिटर को बोलता है कि आप सर्टिफिकेट because they don't want to put their neck on the chopping block. So you will have to be careful. See, during COVID, I had a similar situation and one company had not. So because it was COVID, there was some relaxation which was there. But otherwise, you cannot have a situation where funds in the timeline are not utilized and you are not reporting.
Because auditors have to qualify or give the permit on the fund not to the price or something.
Yes. Depending on the quantum of fund not utilized. See again, as an auditor, if funds are not utilized, आपका टू एंड fair view कहाँ impact होता है पहले वो सोचिए टू एंड fair view इतना ही impact होता है कि ये जो नॉन कंप्लायंस है इसकी जो पेनल्टी आएगी या इसका जो रिपरकशन आएगा दैट इज नॉट गिवन इफेक्ट इन योर फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट तो अगर वो अमाउंट बहुत ही छोटा है you can take a materiality view and let it. तो आपको केस टू केस ही देखना पड़ेगा सर एक जनरल आंसर सबके लिए तो अप्लाई नहीं होगा आई एम प्रिज्यूमिंग इट इज अ मटेरियल अमाउंट इट्स अ मटेरियल अमाउंट यू हैव नो ऑप्शन बट टू रिपोर्ट इट नाउ वेयर डू यू रिपोर्ट इट डिपेंडिंग ऑन your various reports which are there the most closest where it is required whether it is at cargo or whether it is in the main report you have to take a decision. Yeah. Dividend, there are obviously guidelines, unpaid dividend, investor education protection fund. All these things have to be ensure proper compliance when you are doing the audit of a listed company. That does not mean these compliances do not apply to unlisted company. It applies to an unlisted company also. But here the rigor, the level of stringency, the level of compliance has to be 100% with zero on. Bonus capitalization has to be out, cannot be out of asset revaluation. Another is ESOP. Fair valuation as per Ind-AS 102. And again, we will have to see whether that fair valuation is required by a registered valuer or not by a registered valuer. In certain items, they say it should be by a registered valuer. For impairment testing, it does not specify, which means any valuer is. तो आपको specific section में जाके देखना पड़ेगा कि registered valuer की जरूरत है. Regulation 30 of LODR is that if there is any material event, it has to be reported to the stock exchange within 24 hours. तो आपको कोई GST का नोटिस आना है. इन्फोसिस को 3000 करोड़ का GST का नोटिस आया था, अगर आपने बीच में पढ़ा हुआ है. उसने स्टॉक एक्सचेंज को इन्फॉर्म किया, बिकॉज ये वेरिफिकेशन was required. So you will have to use a judgment. The company first will have to use a judgment that if the probability is not rare and remote, or otherwise, if the company thinks that it needs to inform the stock exchange, then they will have to inform the stock exchange for any material event. इसमें थोड़ी सी चेंजेस आए हैं, बिकॉज पहले तो ऐसा था, पेनल्टीज में ऐसा था कि एनी पेनल्टीज हैड टू बी रिपोर्टेड, एनी नोटिस और सुपरपोज नोटिस और पेनल्टी हैड टू बी रिपोर्टेड. तो एक जोक हो रहा था कि 100 रुपए का ट्रैफिक चालान मिला तो वो भी रिपोर्ट करना पड़ेगा स्टॉक एक्सचेंज को. तो देन दे अपने चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स भी क्या है, वो इंटरप्रेट करते हैं ना, तो उनको मजा आता है, अरे इसके हिसाब से तो 100 रुपए का चालान भी इधर रिपोर्ट होना चाहिए. अरे तो ठीक हो जाए, दैट्स नॉट द इंटेंशन ऑफ लॉ. Go by the spirit of the law. So I think when they made some changes to say up to 1 lakh or something, I don't know, but to say that any material item is basically required to be reported to stock exchange. Yes, sir, within 24 hours. You next. Sir, I had a situation where the company did not want to. Okay, I'll tell you. CPC ने कोई wrong figure लेके demand raise कर दिया. If you know what how CPC functions, so it was a completely arithmetical inaccuracy. So there was no basis of that demand or that notice or whatever it was. So company decided not to report. But before that, they had to call for a meeting of independent. So they held the audit committee meeting. They explained the matters to the independent director. Only after the audit committee agreed, okay, you will not report. They did not. And this is a live scenario. 2 cases where both the cases they felt this is completely irrelevant, frivolous, yeah, there's no basis, and hence we will not report.
So for the instead of the Saturday, and what?
24 working. 24 hours working. So again, that's the timeline which is relevant over here. Because what we are saying is this information can impact the share price. अगर इन्फोसिस को 3000 करोड़ का नोटिस आया है, तो इट में इम्पैक्ट. आज जैसे रेजिग्नेशन ऑफ दी HDFC डायरेक्टर पहले बात हुआ MD का है, so it can impact. So you have to 24 hours inform the firm. That's required.
They should relax. Just a very short. Very short. That's not important.
ये ऑडिटर को नहीं करना है, टाइम को कंप्लीटली रिस्पांसिबल है.
Okay. It is ongoing.
In this case, yes, it went to the audit committee. Now there is no specific next one. Yeah, so you inform the independent.
Needs to go.
In fact, in one case, the independent director was not informed, and they had a question that you took a decision and now you are bringing it to me on table. What do you want me to do? Okay, see again, independent directors can behave in whichever way they want, right? They are independent directors. So, पूछते हैं तो बोलते हैं तो भी प्रॉब्लम, नहीं पूछा तो भी प्रॉब्लम. सो समटाइम्स तो ये सिचुएशन आता ही है ना बोर्ड. और कोविड के बाद हर एक इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर हैज बिकम वेरी एक्टिव विद दिस वर्चुअल मोड. देयर इज प्रेजेंस इन ऑल मीटिंग्स. पहले तो क्या था कि ट्रैवल कर रहा हूं तो कैसे अटेंड करूं, मैं ट्रैवल कर रहा हूं, मेरे को लिंक भेजो, आई विल जॉइन ऑनलाइन. नो इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर सेज कि मैं ट्रैवल कर रहा हूं, आई विल नॉट अटेंड. This has been the scenario all through. And day by day, they are also becoming more and more vocal in terms of areas where they feel they are not. Obviously, it depends on the actual independence of the relationship between the independent director and the promoter. So there is an article by Ramesh Yohakar in BCA. Outsider, insider, insider, outsider. So what is an independent? It's actually a non-independent. इसलिए तो डायरेक्टर बना ना. वो पहचानते थे तो इसको बुलाया ना. So very nice article by him on the
Yeah, so doctors, agree. Qualified.
Yeah, different.
What is the penalty on reporting?
I do not know the penalty. That is something for a study practitioner. But again, not a question only about penalty.
Suppose for example, if it is a company,
Yeah,
it is reporting or
inadvertent missing. Ignorance is bliss is not a argument which generally applies.
for example, if not reported within 24 hours, for example, थोड़ा late report किया after 24
मुझे मालूम नहीं है।
penalty.
I don't know how SEBI takes such matters.
Say you so called notice and to
You have to explain. अगर उनको genuineness लगा आपके केस का तो शायद allow करेंगे, otherwise they will put something. We have seen penalties which are levied by SEBI, right, on the traders and other things. Related party. इतना contentious subject हो गया है वो भी मतलब day by day दोनों साइड है. एक जगह पे ऐसा लगता है कि एक भी रिलेटेड पार्टी ट्रांजेक्शन होना ही नहीं चाहिए. एक भी रिलेटेड पार्टी ट्रांजेक्शन होना ही नहीं चाहिए और दूसरी जगह ऐसा लगता है कि no they want to facilitate that but with proper factor. So sometimes you get really confused that should you have related party transactions or not have any related party transactions. But in essence, I'll tell you 1,000 crore company, I was sitting in the meeting and a related party transaction of 7 lakhs was being debated for 15 minutes. That director was not, independent director was not comfortable. So that is the level. 7 lakh on 1,000 crore company. नहीं, इसका document बराबर है. Principle is principle. So there is obviously obligation approval. There are threshold material to respond to that and specified minimum information. I think the whole point is that is the related party transaction an arm's length or not. Have you done it with a non-related party? Would the terms have been same or not? अभी इसका आंसर हर जगह पे इतना ही नहीं. Subjective area है. But nonetheless, you will have to document and demonstrate that due care was taken so that the related party transaction was at the same terms and conditions and price at which it would have happened had it been with an unrelated party.
Of course, related party, actually related party is to be defined by the management. So how auditor will check whether he has done correctly or not? What is the auditor's responsibility? Because management are not declared. What is the, how we should?
नहीं आपको देखना पड़ेगा कि मैनेजमेंट कैसे डिफाइन करता है उसके बैकअप पेपर्स क्या है डिक्लेरेशन सी उसके बाद अगर फ्रॉड हो रहा है मैनेजमेंट फ्रॉड कर रहा है और आपको नहीं पता चल रहा है तो ठीक है ना उसको तो कुछ इसलिए तो हो रहा है फ्रॉड. आपका अडानी का केस तो वही था ना जय अडानी करके वो कोई दुबई में था तो वो तो कितना लंबा चला आपका मैं कहा इतने इतने महारथी लोग भी उस पे रिसर्च करके भी फाइनिंग करके
Ultimately, responsibility comes to the auditor at the end. That is our basic problem.
So you are right, and that's where I'm saying, if you are, this is not for weak-hearted people. Audit profession is not for. If you feel that the management's work process or attitude or approach towards some of these matters is not, resign. Resign करो. आपके पास है ना आपके पास एक सबसे बड़ा जो पता है
लेकिन
वो है आप रिजाइन करो.
लेकिन you have to give the reasons why.
हाँ, so you say disagreement with them. है आपने दम को लिखने का. है तो लिखो कि there is a disagreement on certain matters. आए ना जैसे रेजिग्नेशन आए हैं सर्टिफिकेट पे.
We have to define the segregation.
नहीं you may say disagreement. फिर अगर आएगा इंक्वायरी तो करो आप एक मोड पर करते हैं. आपको सभी you don't need to wash your dirty laundry in front of the public. But you put it little more better. Yeah, I'm saying. I'm giving you an extreme example. You say जैसे काफी लोग बोलते हैं कि information is not provided for the purpose. अब ऐसा देखो कि required information for the purpose of discharging my role as an auditor was not provided on time. अभी that's a very broad comment. ना उसके अंदर फिर सब जाएंगे कोई इंक्वायरी करेगा तो बोलना पड़ेगा आपको, पर आपकी हिम्मत है नहीं। तो वो हिम्मत कहाँ से आएगी? Yeah, so one is you don't have a plan when there is over dependence, where there is over dependence, yeah, concentrate. And second is when you're selecting on it, right, you go a little more homework. Okay, what is the mindset? ये तरफ है कि ये तरफ, तो मालूम पड़ जाता है। चलिए हम लोग नहीं कर पाएंगे, बहुत ज्यादा स्लाइड है। This is just, and this what we are covering is actually just a index of the syllabus which you have to study. If you are doing audit of this company, it's not the actual study material. Key audit matters, which is SA 701 is only applicable to a listed company. Yeah. Which is basically saying what transpired between the auditors and the management. You have to bring it. तो आपके कौन सी issues थे? For example, आपने बोला impairment of loans was a key area. Then you have to say the impairment of loans was a key area. And then how did you resolve it? How are you satisfied with that audit area finally? So that you are not giving either an emphasis of matter or qualified opinion. So this was a critical area. This was a risk area as per you. And if you remember when the first time it started, Infosys का revenue recognition was the template which everybody started copying. तो कैंप भी क्या हुआ, स्टार्टिंग में बहुत फोकस हुआ, फिर बीच में it became completely ठंडा, कोई रिपोर्ट ही नहीं कर रहा था, और फिर नापड़ा इज अगेन आपकी कि हाउ इज इट पॉसिबल कि आपके कोई ऑडिट एरिया ही नहीं थे जो इम्पोर्टेंट, जो आपने मैनेजमेंट के साथ डिस्कस किए। तो दिस इज पर्दे के पीछे ऑडिट और क्लाइंट में जो होता है उसको वो रिपोर्ट में डाल। You understand? Key audit plan, this is what is happening behind the scene as a execution of audit. They want to reproduce that as a part of the audit. That's another thing which is there. The areas of high risk, significant management judgment and estimate, major transactions events during the year, require auditors professional judgment, ensure clear articulation and consistency with audit documentation, must be clearly described in audit report definition. Yeah. Should we go ahead? Then there is other information other than the financial statement and the audit. You also have to comment on that if there is an inconsistency. So whether it is a corporate governance report, whether it is management discussion and analysis report, whether it is PSRS report, PRSR report, which is business responsibility and continuity.
But what about sexual harassment? Whether auditors should take the competence?
I don't think so. Frankly speaking, I mean, that's a completely different area. These are, and that's where I'm saying, only where if it is inconsistent as compared to your audited accounts, then you need to report it. If there is nothing, then you say nothing to report in this way. That is the conclusive one. तो नहीं, मेरे हिसाब से पॉइंट नहीं है। वो TCS का मैटर अभी हो रहा है, तो शायद ऑडिटर, लेकिन इसमें क्या है, बाद में अगर वो लिटिगेशन में चला गया, तो वो अलग बात है ना। नहीं, उसमें शायद आएगा, कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस में रिक्वायरमेंट है कि फॉर फ्रॉम यू, वो आएगा, वो आएगा। आई कम टू दैट कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस टाइम।
It may be interpreted as having a material impact. Because if some top level people are involved in a scandal, it may affect the company's profits.
वो तो judgment use करना है सर, तो general answer
I say that.
That's what I'm saying, but I'm assuming this when we are referring to it's a normal basic one. Yeah. This is the corporate governance, and somebody said the POSH committee also has to be reported. So yes, if it is there, it has to be reported. There are regulations 17 to 27 on board composition, committee composition and meeting, website disclosure, and there is a report format also which is there. Now, this can be issued by statutory auditors as well as it can be issued by the company secretary. So both is permitted. In the earlier years, it was statutory auditors which were more preferred. Now I think it's company secretary which is more preferred. This is my general opinion. Yeah, this is explanatory. New labor code this year. And there are two things which are special for this year. One is the tariff, second is the war, and third is the labor code. So all these developments is something which you will have to consider while you are doing the audit for March 23. The impact of. So I'll give you an example. There is a order fulfillment in the penalty for order fulfillment for pharma companies if you do not supply on time to US market. Now, because of the freight, because of the ships, you're not able to supply. Force majeure, you try to trigger, the other party saying, no, it's not a force majeure because the war is not on the US land. They are saying you fulfill all the payment. So then you have to provide for this. If there is consignment and cargo which is on a ship which is for law, you'll have to report it. Same way labor code, you would have seen, especially when this first came in the, I think December quarter. Yeah, December quarter. Lot of companies, institute came up with a guidelines that how you should account for it. And a lot of companies, including Infosys, HCL, HDFC Bank, have reported large amounts of additional liability. What is this large amount of additional liability on account of? There are three reasons which is there. One is fixed term contract, which is there in IT industry. In case of fixed term contract, they are saying gratuity starts from year one and not on completion of 5 years. In case of leave encashment, they are saying you cannot lapse some of the leaves. So either you pay for it or you allow to carry forward. So that's the second change as far as certain leaves are concerned. I think that is actually only good for 30 hours. And the third change is that basic salary should be at least 50% of your CTC. And if basic salary is less than 50% of CTC, it impacts your gratuity and leave encashment. Yeah, you can. I will get the.
It is applicable.
Sir, मिलेगा ना copy?
It is applicable to private limited company plus.
Yeah.
It is applicable to private limited.
Yes, sir. It is applicable to everybody.
But trust also.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Everybody. सर इसकी बहुत ज्यादा एक्सपीरियंसली है लेकिन what I perceive only the financial impact समझो और लोग आते हैं और बोलते हैं कि ये अलाउ टिकट में लेने का but generally everything should will be covered. And general rule is some rule is everything should be covered. Because again let's not go into that interpretation. Everything is issued by institute as well as Ministry of Labor. So we are halfway through still. It's a long topic. Generally, I cover fast, but I think today because we are having it interactive, a lot of questions also we are trying to address as we move forward. So some of the slides which are very self-explanatory or basic, I will go faster. But NAFRA has increased scrutiny from there on the auditors, as well as SEBI is there. And there is zero tolerance for inadequate documentation, insufficient audit evidence, and lack of professional skill. I mean, these are just three areas. There will be other areas, but whatever three which I felt most important, I'll try to put it here. Audit quality is completely non-negotiable. Yeah, completely non-negotiable. It means there is no accommodation on any level. You say, I'll give you an example. आप लोग मेरे को 2 दिन पहले statement मिला. मना कर दो आप sign करने का अगर आपसे नहीं हो रहा है. But you cannot use that as an excuse to say, hence my audit quality is wrong. आपको अगर sufficient time नहीं मिला, तो आप decide करो आपको क्या करना. और ये होता है हम लोग काफी टाइम हमने CFO को बोला है सर आपका एक्सटेंशन ले लो ऑडिट का. बहुत झगड़ा होता है. झगड़ा होता है मैं आपको क्या बोलूं क्या करें you decide whether a substandard product is better or a deferment of a meeting is required. But somebody in your team has to be vigilant to say, okay, now we've reached a point where we will not be able to deliver. It cannot be on the last day. एक बार हुआ हमारा कैश फ्लो मैच नहीं हो रहा था सर, रात को 10 बजे कैश फ्लो बनाने बैठे, कैश फ्लो मैच नहीं हो रहा। मैं घर पे था, टीम मेंबर कर रहे, बताया भी नहीं। वे जब मीटिंग के 1 घंटे पहले आए तब तक कैश फ्लो नहीं मैच हो रहा। These are situations which you have to avoid. Your team has to say, जो भी है पहले से कितना पेंडेंसी है पार्टनर को इन्फॉर्म, फिर पार्टनर का डिसीजन क्या करते हैं। Yes, you can. Obviously, if it's not ready, how are you responsible? आप तो फिर भी हेल्प कर रहे थे कैश फ्लो बनाने। आपको रिफ्यूज कर सकते हो, लेकिन करना ही चाहिए। Even it's your duty to refuse to sign. There is a difference, sir. I'm not saying can you. I'm saying can you nahi. It's your obligation to say. Now this is a requirement. And then obviously there are a lot of things which go into it, right? फिर हमने रात को सुबह जब हम लोग आए तो हमने देखा कहाँ डिफरेंस है, कितना डिफरेंस है, तो एक जगह बैलेंसिंग फिगर डाल के क्लोज कर नहीं किया ना, मैं बोल रहा हूँ क्योंकि प्रैक्टिकली अगर 20 लाख के लिए पूरा कंपनी का आई कांट जियोवर्टाइज, राइट? तो नेक्स्ट क्वार्टर में उसको रेक्टिफाई कर दी। तो that's all which the partner has created. Yeah, materiality was there, whatever, but still, because the level of pressure at that point of time is, and to think reasonably is not always. The Bible for quality is SQC1. SQC1 is a self-defined code in terms of what the auditor needs to do to ensure quality. It goes from leadership, it goes from team, it goes from the firm's policy, it goes from firm's training program, it goes through independence, it goes through declarations, it goes through various things. And you can see here from acceptance and continuation of client relationships. So there has to be a form which has to be signed, where you say that what has been your experience if you are going to continue the relationship. Or do you have any doubt in terms of continuation of the relationship? Staffing, effective performance of audit engagement, and ongoing review and monitoring of audit engagement. You cannot say मेरे पास staff नहीं था, इसलिए मैंने काम नहीं किया, वो ऑप्शन नहीं है। मेरे पास टाइम नहीं था, इसलिए मैंने बराबर ऑडिट नहीं किया, वो ऑप्शन नहीं है। तो वो सब दिमाग में से निकालते हैं। Those are the facts of life. You have to live with it. Quality Review Board. So prior to NAFRA, Quality Review Board was the board which was formed by the government with 50% representation from government and 50% by IFPI, which did review of the audit firms. And these are some of the observations: lack of quality control, weak implementation of engagement quality control review. So this is another concept that all listed companies need 2 partners or 2 seniors, one as a partner and one who is doing the quality review. Audit performance issues, insufficient planning, supervision and execution of audit, inadequate collection and evaluation of audit reviews, and poor documentation. So all this means what? कि आपने जो भी कंक्लूजन ड्रॉ किया उसके पीछे ही आपकी डॉक्यूमेंट्स मिसिंग है। आपने अगर बोला एवरीथिंग इज फाइन, तो आपको वो कंक्लूड करने के लिए हर एक एरिया वाइज पहले कंक्लूड करना है, और वो एरिया वाइज कंक्लूजन करने के लिए वो एरिया वाइज चेकिंग और उसके ऑब्जर्वेशन और उसका कंक्लूजन। So it's a proper pyramid structure in that sense, where from a base level you go up to form the final. And those were missing: non-compliance with ethical requirements, weak policies and process for independence transformation, inadequate training and skill development for audit personnel, and engagement team lacking necessary competence and experience. आप ऐसा नहीं बोल सकते कि सर ये का क्वालिटी खराब हो गया, भले वो फैक्चुअल हो, लेकिन आप तो ऐसा नहीं बोल सकते एज ए नॉलेज, यू हैव नो ऑप्शन, दैट्स समथिंग व्हिच विल नॉट कट एनी आइज. FRRP is another board. It's a board of the Institute, Financial Reporting Review Board. It does a desktop review of the financial statements unilaterally or based on recommendation from the government or other agencies. And they have found failure to comply. और ये तक की बुक्स पब्लिकेशन अवेलेबल है, सबका 200 300 पेज के बुक्स है. इसलिए मैंने बोला ये तो इंडेक्स है, सिलेबस मटीरियल तो आपको कहीं और से लेना. Failure to comply with applicable accounting standard or in the incorrect recognition and measurement. Again, these are only few of them. Inadequate disclosure of RPT and contingent liability, effective accounting policy. Misstatement in financial state, incorrect valuation of excess liability, inadequate provision and impairment recognition. Improper presentation in financial state and disclosures. So these are all some of the common points which they have found. If you go to that, they will actually give you a little more detail of each. This is just a summary. तो आपको आपके स्टाफ का जो ट्रेनिंग करना है वो ये सब ग्राउंड्स पे ही करना है, और ये सब के प्रेजेंटेशन बहुत ही अवेलेबल.
Yes, that was observations by FRRB. What are the
मुझे एक्शन कोई लिया ऐसा ध्यान में नहीं है. आई एम नॉट फेमिलियर विद it. So 70-80% of this is more to improve, at least in a case of FRRP. And we are saying you are making very silly mistakes. मतलब आपने किया भी सही है, लेकिन आपने लिखा सही नहीं है अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसीज के बारे में. अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसीज में आपने लिखा होगा समथिंग, तो पीपो वेटेड एवरेज ऐसा नहीं लिखा है. आपने प्रॉपर फॉलो किया लेकिन आपने लिखा नहीं है. वैसे टाइप के बहुत सारे ऑब्जर्वेशन. तो मुझे ऐसा फेसिलिटी का कोई ध्यान नहीं है. हाँ, वेरी वेरी सिंपल. After the topic, they have not only completed 6, they have now completed other 2 or 3 also. And I think reports are available on the website. So, see what is NAFRA doing. NAFRA is saying that you have standards on auditing, which is prepared by you members only, approved by you members. तो स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ ऑडिटिंग आप फॉलो कर रहे हो कि नहीं, वो पूछना ही नहीं. इट इज मैपिंग योर एक्चुअल प्रैक्टिस विद व्हाट इज रिक्वायर्ड अंडर द स्टैंडर्ड. और स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ ऑडिटिंग में तो मोस्ट आइडियलिस्टिक सिनेरियो लिखा है हर चीज का. अगर आपने वो नहीं फॉलो किया आप नॉट फॉलो. हर एक लाइन और हर एक वर्ड ऑफ द स्टैंडर्ड इज वेयर देयर इज अ analysis of whether you are doing it or not doing it. Cases of conclusion not documented. Document of ECL testing. ECL is expected credit loss. उसका document नहीं है. Impairment assessment of investment and independent fraud risk evaluation were not available. Over reliance on management estimate. Audit procedure to analyze unusual risk. तो वो तो इतने डेप्थ में गए और इतने वो ऐसे 600 आया. कैफे के एप्लीकेशन क्या हो रहा था, जो होल्डिंग कंपनी थी और उसकी जो सब्सिडरी थी, होल्डिंग कंपनी का ऑडिटर अलग था, सब्सिडरी का ऑडिटर अलग था, और जो मेन बिजनेस था वो सब्सिडरी में. तो जो होल्डिंग कंपनी का ऑडिटर, तो वो जो ऑडिटर ने किया वो विदाउट एनी फर्दर इन्फॉर्मेशन. आपका स्टैंडर्ड भी बोलता है कि यू शुड डू मिनिमम चेक, देन डिसाइड वेदर यू कैन रिलाई as much as you can. As much as you can. So he's a part of your team member. What will you do for your team member? आप कितना चेक करोगे आपके टीम ने किया, उससे भी हो सकता. मैं आता हूँ सर उसकी वो भी. I'll come to that. Audit procedure to analyze unusual revenue trends and risk of understatement of values not adequate. Insufficient verification of related party transaction. ये insufficient verification में identification भी cover हो जाता है सर. आप ऐसा नहीं बोल सकते कि आइडेंटिफाई नहीं
There are major identity one forms are
Yeah.
considered.
और जो जानबूझ के किया होगा ना वो ऐसे भी it will be so big के
You can mention.
yeah you can't even then it will be a real fraud.
How auditor will know whether it is limited or the management duty. What extent auditor can go?
तो बेसिक चेक तो करना चाहिए ना वो एक बार check तो उसके बाद नहीं पकड़ा तो ठीक है then you so you have to demonstrate that you do sufficient check whatever was possible or not. Yes, what 11 is a hard stop. Network firms provision of prohibited non-audit services influence on global audit network. So this is basically before related. The parts over there. Right. Standard page statement अगर आप देखिए 300, 315, 240, 320, 330, which is the whole section on risk assessment, planning and response. That did you do your activities or was there failure or was there lack or was there negligence on the part of the auditor? Communication with those charged with governance. This is again a topic which we will touch up in detail in subsequent slides. So it can't be only the formal presentation at the end, but there should be a constant two-way interaction between the auditor and those charged with the quality control and professional judgment, weak implementation and documentation of engagement quality control, lack of professional skepticism, reporting deficiencies, non-compliance with prescribed report format. Report का format भी सही नहीं apply किया है. Failure to report matters required in the 143(3). These are the books of accounts are properly maintained and all these. Incorrect use of emphasis of matter in case of audit modification. So ये जो मैंने आपके बीच में कहा बोला था. Adoption of some of the measures which firm have taken is use software tools, strengthen independence monitoring mechanism, improved audit documentation practices, and revision in policies for file management and archiving. These are the latest needs which NAPRA has issued for interaction between the auditors and the audit committee, which is on accounting estimates and judgment, audit strategy and planning, related parties, impairment of non-financial assets, provision of contingency. If when कितना literature standard on auditing है, इससे भी फिर NAPRA, ये सबको comply करना. और फीस तो बढ़ नहीं रही थी. I'll give you an example of this fees. I was the main auditor and the subsidiary was in US. तो जब हम कंसोलिडेट कर रहे थे हमने बोला कि ये नोट आपका गलत है आपको चेंज करना है मैनेजमेंट पॉइंट ये नोट आप डिलीट कर दो इतना इसका वर्डिंग चेंज करो बिकॉज अदरवाइज आई हैव अ प्रॉब्लम बाय दैट कंसोलिडेट. तो ऑडिटर ने कितना भी बोला तो चेंज करना 2000 एक नोट डिलीट करना है फिर क्या बोला $2000 और हम लोग क्या करेंगे if you don't value your own service. See, that guy is saying because I have to document the reason for change. I have to explain it to somebody in future when that question comes up that why did I drop this note? So it's not a question of effort. It's the value of service. Today the audit fees are, in my view, 1/4 of what it should. All of us. Let's say increase it by 4 times, you can't apply the law. हाँ? नहीं बट सर ये लिस्टेड कंपनी का ऑडिट है आपको डिसाइड तो करना ही पड़ेगा और वही तो सी दैट इज वेयर आई थिंक NAPRA has also started changing their perspective, being more practical. So I got in the recent reviews. So impairment of non-financial assets, provision of contingent. So that was on the NAPRA series for the independent directors. We go to SA 600 device, which is a topic by itself again as I said. What did NAPRA observe? There was inadequate coordination between the main auditor and the component auditor. Failure to verify unaudited components included in consolidation. Failure to detect fund diversion and fraud at group level, so not at the main level, but at the subsidiary level. So आपका ये question indirectly यहाँ पे cover होता है. Lack of evaluation of internal financial control across group entities. Failure to competency of other overseas auditors. Improper exclusion of subsidiary leading to material misstatement and failure to identify manipulation such as understatement of loan through unpresented checks. These were some of the NAFTA observations on group audit. So they said, let's revise it. And this is in line with the international. So international, if in India में आया, तो हमने slide add कर दिया that the auditor can rely on the work of component auditor if he is a member of Institute of Chartered. तो वो लाइन हमने ऐड किया था टू द इंटरनेशनल नाफ्टा ऑब्जेक्ट है, तो उन्होंने पहले कंपैरिजन it deals with special consideration that arise from audit of group financial. The standard is applicable to public interest enterprises. इन लोग को एक्सक्लूड इसलिए किया क्योंकि बहुत रिप्रेजेंटेशन है सीएजी में. कि सीएजी अपॉइंट कर रहा है और फिर आप उसको क्वेश्चन कर रहे हो, तो हाउ इज इट पॉसिबल? इसलिए ये पब्लिक सेक्टर बैंक्स और अंडरटेकिंग को वहां से निकाल दिए. डिवाइस नाफ्टा सीक्वेंस. NAFTA has recommended that this will be applicable from 1st April 26, but it is already now got notified. But action has started in the market. So today, when I am the auditor of a subsidiary, the group auditor meets me every quarter on Zoom. He records the questions and answers between questions which they have and the answers which we give, and he keeps it that recorded item as his documentary evidence of the steps which he has taken to ensure that my quality of work is in.
Let me ask.
Group audit inspection is obviously one of them. I'm saying over and above the group audit inspection. Yes, yes. हाँ वो 20% का क्राइटेरिया है, it can be management certified, but आपको डिसीजन लेना, आपको लगता है वो रेलिवेंट है तो आपको जाना ही पड़ेगा उसके साथ. अगर आपको वहां पे कोई ऐसा मानते हैं, but 80% of work sir, हाँ ना वहाँ पे ऊपर रेवेन्यू प्रॉफिट और वो सब पैसे तो क्राइटेरिया था पहले की स्लाइड में, शायद आप बाद में आए. The group engagement partner is ultimately responsible for the group audit and group audit report. Even if the task is delegated to component auditors, the group engagement partner will be accountable for quality. No reference to component auditor in the audit report unless required by law or regulation. So that's what they want. They don't want a reference that you have relied on the work of a partner. The revised report will not contain that thing.
The group engagement auditor or partner is what?
Only company. Component auditor मतलब subsidiary auditor और group बोला तो main concern. Yes, that's called group audit. Yes. Yes. उसकी फाइल भी आप रिव्यू कर सकते हो. आपको वो सब राइट्स दिए हुए हो गए. हाँ आपका स्टाफ हो गए. So this is a comparison between 600 revised and the old 600. But in the essence, it's the same thing which I said, that you cannot overlap. You have to review, you have to ensure that whatever the quality steps are there in your form, there are similar quality steps are there in that form also. I'll keep a little bit of this because this is the same thing which I've said in classified in different, it's not still the content.
But can we treat them for listed company, but in a private company or any subsidiary company also? Can we adopt the principle over there?
अभी तो ये लिस्ट कोई अप्लाई हुआ है जो हो गए नहीं वो नहीं.
So, subsidiary company auditor, like a group auditor. But then we can answer question.
Yeah, yes, you should, sir, you should.
Yes.
SUV 600 में भी ये थी, आपका वही बोल रहा है कि आपने कन्वीनियंस रूट ले लिया, पहले के स्टैंडर्ड में भी ये थोड़ा इनडायरेक्टली कवर था, बट एक लाइन ऐड कर दिया था कि यू कैन रिलाई ऑन द वर्क ऑफ द कंपोनेंट ऑडिटर इफ ही इज अ मेंबर ऑफ द इंस्टीट्यूट। वो रिलीज करें नहीं नोटिफाइड अभी तो sharing of work paper is what I spoke about. Direction, supervision, sufficient, appropriate resource. So what two or three people said, that's called as group audit instructions. So the auditor of the holding company gives instructions to the auditors of the company. That's called as group audit instruction. उसका timeline रहता है और उस हिसाब से वो जो subsidiary के ऑडिटर है या joint venture के ऑडिटर है वो करना है holding company auditor।
Sir, I have been appointed as a peer reviewer of a holding company. And in that case, I can ask the information from the
So you are not appointed peer reviewer of any company. You are appointed for a firm.
firm, yeah.
So you are not an auditor of a company. You are not being appointed for peer review.
Sir, I can ask for the information relating to subsidiary
Yes,
company.
you can ask that what is that auditor did to ensure the quality of the subsidiary. इतना पूछ सकते हैं। So evaluation of component auditors competency. So ये क्या इंस्टीट्यूट के दिमाग में नहीं बैठा था ये दूसरे की competency कैसे evaluate, but they don't do it. 7th January a circular came which created a lot of ripple in terms of saying that audit committee needs not be those charged with governance. And predominantly it could be board of directors or it could be any other group identified by the board of directors. And this circular, after that, a lot of companies have started creating a separate group, which is audit committee plus some members of board to represent those charged with governance. As I said, this is a new concept. Effective date is not mentioned anywhere, but it will apply for the March audit review. And basically a framework has to be decided in terms of, and there are model frameworks which are now available. MP Vijay Kumar, who is one of the renowned chartered accountants from South India, he has developed a model he has developed a model communication or the model framework, which is available on his LinkedIn. You can download it from there. And it requires various things. Who is the nodal officer? How will the communication happen? What frequency communication will happen? What are the points which are discussed? And it's a basically a formality के लिए नहीं होना चाहिए. These are the communications which are required with the those charged with government auditor's responsibility in scope, significant audit findings, disagreement with management, accounting and financial reporting, changes in accounting policy, etc. आप देखिए कितना चीज है ये कम्युनिकेशन का काम तो करना ही है, साथ में कम्युनिकेशन भी करना है. This statement, internal control matters, fraud, related party, again, some of these are common themes. Representation, compliance, and so what we do is when we give our presentation, the last section is mandatory communication. And there we say whether we have anything to report or nothing to report. So इसका एक टेबल बना दिया है ये सब लेफ्ट हैंड साइड पे आइटम है, राइट हैंड साइड पे बोलते हैं no nothing to highlight, or if there is something to highlight then go to that. Deadline is 60 days. Effective execution time is 20 to 25 days. So avoid concentration of work post year end. Do it throughout the year. Do it in February, March, January, whenever you have time. Start recruiting your people and give them focus work. Control testing, walkthrough. Focus on final stage at year end and align with NAFRA expectation of timely execution. मेरे को बोलता है वो फाइल भी 60 डेज के बाद टेम्पर प्रूफ होना चाहिए वर्किंग पेपर फाइल. नो डॉक्यूमेंट शुड बी चेंज आफ्टर. independent state, completion of independent state relations, continuous monitoring. Photographic is open bar change where recently, so we also go through that. And document safeguard applied for UP type, which is unpublished price sensitive information, and SDQ, which is structured digital database. Risk assessment, risk of material misstatement. Identify key कौन सी area risk है, ये दो examples है यहाँ पे. Apply threshold and do the risk assessment. A lot of focus is that because we are large company, your risk assessment has to be that kind of focus, so that we can focus on areas which are risk prone. Risk-based audit both areas. Audit trail is another area, or again a very technical subject. You're supposed to be an engineer also now to see whether the edit logs are maintained, whether changes to logs itself is a log is maintained for that. Fortunately, in our team, we have two people who are very IT savvy and they are able to do it, but otherwise it's not very easy.
And rely on external agencies and about
Yeah, I think you can, but the institute guidance note has been damaging. Where it is putting a lot of responsibility on the auditor. But I was of the view that a specialized subject is जो भी SAP vendor है, उस सर्टिफिकेट के लिए पर नहीं कोई सब ऑडिटर्स और ज्यादा उससे पता नहीं. तो ये आपके पास भी चॉइस नहीं है ना.
ये सॉफ्टवेयर प्रोग्राम हो
That explanation, unfortunately, internal auditor, review of internal auditor reports, assess reliance, incorporate findings into audit strategy or the audit procedures, identify control direction this areas. कितना चीज करना है? Actually का तो डाला नहीं है अभी तक. हाँ? I achieved another very when this came from Savin Software and it was detailed documentation of RPM risk control metrics in terms of ensuring that the financial numbers are free from any errors. IFC testing was for design, test of controls and evaluation of controls. To be controlled whether they are manual control or when I go, this is a very basic slide, but ensure that you are present in these activities or document this correctly. External confirmation is still something which a lot of auditors do not follow. We will have to get direct confirmation from the bankers and the parties for the purpose. This is what happened in case of Satyam, where the confirmation was routed through the company and the PDF was modified, PDF file. There I think you should get direct. Related party, identification, approval, arm's length, testing, monitoring, red flag, controls, reporting, and go on. Related party is what NAPRA said, do not accept management valuation. You must check the medical accuracy of BCF. In case BCF में error था तो बोला that is also your responsibility. You go mathematical error. NAPRA often flag errors in terminal value calculation. So you need to understand the value. अभी आपने value correct किया नहीं है. But
Sir, rounding up errors, for मुझे error or something.
एक में निकल है. तो नहीं है.
Then I'm just asking.
Not worth spending a time with. ECL simplified approach, but for loan to subsidiaries. So ECL is a very large topic again by itself, especially for the financial institution, banks, they engage in topic. It's a forward-looking probability of returns, which needs to be understood and recognized.
give this state of board to something.
बोला था मैंने स्टेट ऑफ फोर्स का भी बोला मैंने और का बोला तो ये देने पड़ेगी देखो से देख मैंने पार्टनर कंपनी का नॉन प्रोक्यूरमेंट ऑफ यूएस को ऑर्डर्स का बात हाँ वो भी कंसल्ट कर दिया lapses in assessing arm's length nature of industry loan given to is also something which we have. This is the next is the going concern. So they read your mind, you read their mind. Review management assessment, evaluate cash flows, debt covenant, liquidity position. Consider need for disclosure or communication. Litigation and continuity. If there's something in public domain, this will have to. If it's a listed company of the private company में कुछ हुआ तो public domain में नहीं आ रहा, public domain में आ गया एक बार. Can't ignore that. Quarterly statement are some of the other key areas. Quarterly statement submitted to bank, managerial remuneration, CSR compliance. CSR की क्या है? Monitoring certificate, actual utilization certification. अगर सिर्फ आपने देख दिया पैसा, वो sufficient नहीं. आपने 31 मार्च को चेक दिया, आपने non compliance कर दिए, because they can't spend it in 1 day. You need the utilization.
Normally, the market are only there to be. That's a practicality.
सुनिए सर, आपको थोड़ा तो उस मैनेजमेंट को समझाना तो पड़ेगा. आप बोलोगे कि मैं
And it becomes very difficult to do utilization.
Right, you were agency will do. The organization is the funds are making there.
you may let it go one time. एक बार warning दे के छोड़ दो. लेकिन आप हर बार continuously ये non compliance का burden आपके ऊपर ले रहे हो. आप risk reward तो देखो. आपका 10 लाख का फीस है और आप इतना रिस्क ले रहे हो.
Plus condition and normally take it on 31st March. And in the case of trust, they accept the donation and stress that. And you then in that case, very difficult to keep utilization.
Absolutely.
Trust audit.
Yes sir.
That is
जैसे
the
सर आपने आप ट्रस्ट का ऑडिट का एक सेशन ले लीजिए. जैसे रजिस्टर्ड कंपनी का कर रहे हो तो ट्रस्ट में तो बहुत सारे इश्यूज है सर.
it's a reality.
Again, this is partly reputation, but I'm saying from an audit perspective, do a recall to look at whether the elimination and the profit elimination is correctly happened or not. Uniform accounting policy is another area. So I'm an auditor of a company where the holding company is following people subsidiary due to staff limitations following weightage. We issue 2 financial statements, one for compliance purposes and one for consolidation purposes. Fit for consolidation. Fit for consolidation is under the people and the manually बाहर से SAP के बाहर से कैलकुलेशन होता है और जो compliance वाले स्टेटमेंट है उसमें weighted average है. और दोनों लिस्टेड हैं, होल्डिंग भी लिस्टेड, सब्सिडियरी भी लिस्टेड. पॉसिबल नहीं पॉसिबल है ना, तो वो SAP का लिमिटेशन इसे वो चेंज नहीं कर पाएंगे. बाद में अक्वायर किया, सब्सिडियरी को बाद में अक्वायर किया.
One time, नेचर ऑफ बिजनेस एक्टिविटी ऐसा होता
नहीं पॉसिबल है वो करने का, बरोबर है या again in case of listed company or quality control reviewer, the engagement partner is to rotate after 7 years. And there is a condition where the engagement partner cannot become the quality review partner and the quality review partner cannot become the engagement partner. So, ये भी थोड़ा documentation has to be everything, content areas, rule, which means 80% of the work paper if they are created. So this is one example. So name 80% work papers create हुए. Now that means आपने last में सब audit procedure किए हैं, which is not possible, which is not reasonable. Obviously, management representation is not substitute to auditing evidence. Again, on audit documentation. Audit documentation, the 60-day rule is what I spoke about. Post that there should be no change. Metadata is the time stamping of the data. Minutes with those charged with tolerance. And just making a statement that the accounts were reviewed is not sufficient. So it should be descriptive and narrative in terms of what did you discuss with those traffic flow. Format of plan, scope, audit strategy, minutes of peak of community, broad risk, revenue from operations and journal entries. These are some of the templates which you should have. In content of an ideal file, either substantive testing, analytical testing, balance confirmation, quality control review, or updated documents, lot of things. Yeah. Use checklists. So what is the final takeaway? Use checklists, use standard template, use software for documentation, use standard questionnaires, templates for client renewal, document key discussions with management, periodic communication and management letters, periodic internal peer review. तो आपके टीम में आप दूसरे टीम को बिठा जो पहली वाली टीम का peer review कर. Discipline and engagement letter and letter of representation. Internal quality review is something which is important. Benchmark for zero error in disclosure, consistency across the firm. Though this is very difficult, इतना easy है. मैं खुद चाह रहा हूँ तीन partners है audit में, तीनों की practices थोड़े अलग है. Strengthen audit quality, enhance client confidence, and uphold regularity. Start early, focus on risk areas, maintain defensible documents, ensure transparent communication, and be prepared for regulatory. Questions, right? No more questions, sorry. I will try to answer whatever I could. Thank you. ऐसा बोलते बोलते गया इतना करते करते आदमी कितना देगा उसको. It is a fact. There's a lot of things. None of them are going to get reduced for some more time. Till the time the capital market is maturing, till the time the audit community also rises to the occasion. निकाल रहे हैं ना अभी तो बोला वो तीनों इंस्टीट्यूट का Thank you once again.
Thank you, Milan. Thank you, Milan. Thanks to Milan Mody for delivering such an insightful and informative lecture for our study circle. Your valuable knowledge and clear presentation made the session highly engaging and beneficial for all the participants. We truly appreciate you and your team efforts and time you dedicated to enhancing our understanding. Before I give this mic to our deputy convener for vote of thanks, just wanted to announce 3 things. Number 1, on AGM day, I had a promise to simplify the registration process for our members. So initially, after working for 1 month, we designed some prototype. There were some errors, so we those bugs also plugged in. Now our members can log in through that membership form circulated by Navnath yesterday. So once you fill up your name or membership number, your all the details will automatically populated, at least for renewal case of membership. So 1600 members used to fill up in 7 or 8 steps. So it becomes very easy and handy for you. Only for those members where email ID in data given to JB Nagar Study Circle is wrong, there could be possibility of you will get error. Number 1. Number 2, if your membership number is 5 digit, so you don't have to prefix 0. Only 5 numbers you have to fix. Otherwise, you will put 0, you will get a bug or error. So that only things you have to keep. Only fill up that check number or something. Automatically, everything will be auto fill up for you. So that will be very simplified process. So it will help members. It will save time. At least 1600 members. Always, I mean, it will be a cumbersome process. So I get a lot of phone from a lot of members. So I think it will be simplified process. Number 1. Number 2, trying to, I mean, I'm not able to reduce my size, but I'm trying to reduce size of boxes. So you can see gift size box reduced. So trying to improve quality rather than increase quantity. You can see snacks box also. You may see a small box, but quality will be very good. So you can taste today. So you can see that. So we are trying to improve quality rather than quantity. So you can see those things. So I'll request now our Deputy Supervisor Mody for giving a vote of thanks. Our second speaker is also arrived, so he's voting. Post that vote of thanks, we'll have small break, 15-20 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, friends. I realize the presence of our Vishwamitama, Lodaji. Lodaji, good morning, sir. Votes of thanks to CA Milanji. On behalf of Devi Nagar Study Circle, I perfectly blend depth and clear that you have walked through the complex regulatory forms like the SEBI, LODR, Companies Act, Inside Trader also, highlight the practical pitfall and of the listed company, and also it is how it is relevant to the private limited with the buts and nots. We specially appreciated your simple issue like a board composition, related party transaction, disclosure of the timeliness, SDD compliance, and give the action and step. You empathizes on the compliance in the spirit and not just in the letter was the strong takeaway from all of us. So I request all of members to give the high applause and hearty applause to the PA. So we will take a break for the 15 minutes. Thank you. Thank you all.
Sanjeev, आपने जो इन्होंने next name of size, size